Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Canine Cannibalism. Today, we are going to be taking a look at Playground, Child of Divorce by Aron Beauregard. Alrighty, so this book, or at least this copy, I think this is one of the only copies that exists right now, is 202 pages and contains an About the Author section at the end. The book is a prequel to Playground, which, if you have not seen my video on Playground, go watch that now. I'll put it up in this corner over here. And in this book, a bunch of kids are thrown into a Saw game situation led by a megalomaniacal, sociopathic, and fertile deviant, which is also the plot of the first Playground. The second, chronologically, the first, chronologically in real, whatever. Going to be doing normal stuff in this video. We got a content sample. I'll talk about that in a second. General review stuff, plot summary. I don't know if I have anything else to say after the plot summary review-wise. I don't fully remember. It's been about a week since I finished taking notes on this book. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, I am going to start calling my trigger warnings content samples. For a myriad of reasons. One, I don't really want it to just be a trigger warning. I never really wanted it to just be a trigger warning. I mean, if you've seen some of my videos before, you might have noticed that, like, I included stuff like pus and ingesting vaginal discharge, like stuff that's not really going to trigger anyone aside from just general gross out stuff. But I want it to be more of a this is what the book contains. So content sample. So that will act as a trigger warning, obviously. And then also, if you're into some of this stuff, within reason, maybe you're into people eating shit. I'm not here to judge you. If you're into that, this is my way of letting you know, hey, such and such book is full of coprophilia, So, and then also it's just, I feel like that's just something that the audience watching this video would probably like. It's just me telling you all of the fucked up shit that happens in these books. So, content sample from now on. So, yeah. Let's jump into, without further ado, the content sample for this video. So, if you were to pick up a copy of Playground and read it, you would find all of the following. You have your standard gore, torture, mutilation, and death. You also have sexual abuse in this book, which includes sexual assault, rape, necrophilic acts, and incest. You also have some child abuse, pretty much everything bad that happens in this book, aside from the sexual stuff, happens to children. So you have physical abuse, child murder, and death, and then there is a short flashback near the beginning that contains child sexual abuse. So you also have animal abuse, including physical abuse, and then in the middle of doing this trigger warning, I decided to switch over to a content sample, which means I had to re-update my template, and then a whole bunch of stuff got fucky-wucky. And I wrote down sexual abuse, but I just sat here for 5 minutes trying to rack my brain as to where there was sexual abuse in the book, and I couldn't remember any. So I don't think there is animal sexual abuse in the book, but I'm just going to put that out there because I wrote it down. There's also animal death. Very, very violent animal death, as a matter of fact. There's also intimate partner abuse. There is some shit, including coprophilic acts and coprophagic acts. You also have general filth. You may have noticed in the past few videos I haven't really been doing a general filth category. That's because I was trying to go more towards just things that would trigger people, but now I've come to terms with the fact that that's not really what I want anyway. So you have pus, the ingestion of pus, poor hygiene, and then some stuff with bugs, including the ingestion of bugs in sexual situations. Yeah, that's pretty much it for your content sample for this video. It's a little worse than the first Playground. Not in terms of the violence, but in terms of the sexual stuff. There's a bit more of it. It's a bit more gross. It feels very much like Aron Beauregard was trying to one-up what he did in the first book. And we're going to talk about that right now. So, I'm using a new software setup today, by the way. If you see anything weird, I'm recording directly through the software that allows me to record off of my phone instead of using OBS. because that was just not going well. And then I'm also recording my audio through Audacity. So there may be some issues. I don't know. This is the first time I've done this. I did an extensive portion of testing, I will tell you that. As I just said, it really does seem like Beauregard in a couple of the scenes is very much trying to one-up what happened in the first Playground book. We get, and this is so no spoilers yet, but if you know the scene in the original Playground, which I'm also not going to spoil because I don't feel like that book has been out long enough for me to spoil with impunity. The scene, the quintessential Playground scene that happens pretty early on, it happens similarly in this book, but it is worse in every imaginable way. And instead of easing into it throughout the chapter, like was done in the original book, we get flashbanged by it. So it's the first sentence after we get, because it's, the style of the first one, if you've read it, it's like back and forth between the perspectives of the different children and then Geraldine. And in this one, we jump from one of the perspectives of, I think, the children directly to the scene. And it's in the first sentence, and as you read the first sentence, it just gets worse and worse, and I had to shut the book for a couple of seconds because it quite literally startled me. It was so unexpected. So it definitely feels like he's trying to one up everything. You might remember, if you saw my last video, if you're one of the 20 people that saw my last video, I commented on the prose in the end of that video, which I don't think anyone saw because of the watch time, but, I can hope. I commented on the prose feeling different. Having read the whole thing, I take that back. It's still very much Aron Beauregard's style. It's still very... amateurish is the wrong word. I really don't want to call it amateurish because that feels like an insult. That doesn't feel constructive. But it's not advanced. Okay? It's just not. Like, I mean, you can argue with me until the cows come home, but the prose is far from advanced. It doesn't feel like it's his first time writing, so amateurish really isn't the right word. It's just rudimentary. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with prose being rudimentary. You don't have to write like fucking McCarthy every time you write a book. That's just unnecessary. But it's very rudimentary. It's very lots of alliteration. Some of the dialogue feels a little iffy. I will note that in this book, a lot of the dialogue felt less cringe than it did in especially the first Playground. The plot in this one is much better than something like, say, Son of the Slob, but it's still got that Beauregard tinge to it, or tint. I think both of those words work in that context, whatever. So, I mean, some moments, for example, I was just kind of sitting there, just like, well, yeah, those certainly are words that you could use in that order, but I don't know why you did that. Like, just, it tonally felt wrong, felt unnecessary, just like a bunch of jargon. For this is an example. This is going to include some very, very light spoilers, but he's describing a horrifying murder robot coated in human skin. And then he ends it with, it was a menace to society, and even worse, an immediate threat to everyone in the room. Like, I guess you could make the argument that because it's from the kid's perspective, a child's perspective in this scene, that it's meant to be kind of childish, but it feels so iffy. It was a menace to society, and even worse, an immediate threat to everyone in the room. I'd have to read the whole scene for you to really get what I'm trying to get across, but I think that does enough justice to what I'm saying. He goes from something that is quite horrifying. It's a very good lengthy description. It doesn't feel like it's too much. It doesn't feel like it's too little. It's a very, very Goldilocks zone-esque description of something that is quite disturbing. And then just ending it with that line felt very rudimentary, amateurish, really, for that one. Honestly, I'll just say that. It felt very Beauregardy. We got another example of this. She looked like a human voodoo doll that had gone to hell, referring to someone's blood-covered, mangled body. Like, I mean, yeah, you can use those words in that order, but I don't really, I get generally what you're trying to say, but in terms of similes. That's about the weakest thing. It's so non-concrete. It's very like it's not even abstract like in a good way. It's very just I get like you could use those words in that order, but I don't know why you would. If you catch my drift, like I don't know. I mean, he's kind of Beauregard is kind of renowned for his interesting figurative language throughout his works, but that is just like it kind of feels lazy. If I'm honest, I don't actually think he was being lazy. That's what it comes across as tonally, is that it's the first thing that came to your mind. Like you don't want to workshop that a little more, and it wouldn't be a big issue. I mean, the shit like this is in all like every book I've ever read has a situation like this, right? Where there's like something where it's just like, I mean, probably wouldn't have said that, but you're the author. But it's just like it's pretty consistent throughout Beauregard's books, especially this one. I don't know. It's just kind of my 2 cents on the matter. It was fine overall. I will say this. It wasn't miserable to read. I did have fun. I did read it almost entirely in one sitting, so it was an interesting read. It was short and sweet. A couple hours long took me to read, I guess. It was fine. It was fine. I would say, given the length, that I'm also almost hesitant to say that I like it more than the original, but I do kind of like it more than the original just because of the length. It gets across many of the same story beats um, as the original has in a shorter period of time. A lot of fluff felt like it was cut out. It's much shorter, and I did enjoy that, and I enjoyed the story direction. I thought the plot was overall very well, Jesus, very good. I enjoyed it. Okay. Do not take my critiques as me saying that I hate the book. I do not hate the book. I do not hate Beauregard's writing. Um, it's generally not for me, but I didn't mind Playground. It was very, very long comparatively to other stuff, and it again felt very fluffy at certain points. But I mean, I didn't mind the slob. I thought the slob was fine, kind of. I liked this one. I think this actually might be my favorite. It's between this and Playground, and honestly, I think this is probably better than Playground. But so we're gonna get into some light spoilers now. We got some excerpts and scenes to talk about here. So this is your warning. Everything after this is going to be very plot heavy, spoiler heavy. So if you don't want none of that, here's your time to get the fuck out. But if you're still here, we're gonna go ahead with some scenes and excerpts from the book. So there is a scene, and this is the scene where a man is being more or less forced to eat a woman's ass out. And she has hemorrhoids, and she essentially forces him. I don't know why I'm saying essentially. She forces him to bite on her hemorrhoids and make them burst in his mouth. And I forgot to mention her anus is covered in shit while this is happening. So, yeah, that scene was gross. I will be the first to admit that scene was gross. And starting a chapter like that, where it's just uh, the man's fat tongue moistened the woman's horrific hemorrhoids as he continued to lick, and that's like the first sentence, it's startling. It is startling. So that's it for scenes and excerpts. We're going to jump into a plot summary here. Here is your last warning to get out because we are about to spoil pretty much all of the main story beats. Again, I always leave some things to the imagination. I always leave some things out so that if you do choose to read the book, you will have a different experience than if you were to just listen to my plot summary. But with that said, we're going to jump into it right now. So, there is a young, troubled child of divorce named Matthew, and he gets kidnapped by Geraldine Borden and is used as a guinea pig for the early version of the swing sets from the first book. So, again, a lot of this isn't going to make much sense if you haven't seen that video or at least read that book. I would highly recommend you go do that right now because otherwise this is going to be problematic. Matthew does not know how to use the swing set, and so he gets burned to a crisp by the flames that rise up underneath him. We flash forward a few months, and a bunch of other kids get kidnapped and are being run through an early version of the playground again. I'm just skipping a lot of fucking meat here, but none of it's really important for at least this version of this that I'm telling. Um, and while they are solving puzzles, and this is much, I want to say it's much more puzzle oriented than the first one, but now that I think about it, it's really not. It's just a very rudimentary version of the final playground that we see in the first book. But while they're doing these puzzles, they get chased around by a killbot that is dressed in Geraldine's mother's rotting skin. I will tell you a little backstory on the robot because I thought this was fucking great. The bot was originally conceived as a sex bot for Geraldine by Fuchs because, if you remember from the first book, Geraldine had a strange obsession with her mother, a sexual and murderous obsession with her mother, and after she died, Geraldine dug her corpse up and continuously used it for purposes. And so Fuchs saw this and decided to turn it into a sex bot for her. He made a robot, coated it in Geraldine's mother's skin, except it continued to rot despite his best efforts, or the skin continued to rot despite his best efforts, and after being switched on for the first time, it immediately leaped on Geraldine, rubbed itself against her face, and coated her skin in maggots, which it also squished into her mouth and eyes. The kids that are running through this course end up finding Matthew after completing one of the earlier puzzles. He is equipped with a vest that has a camera, microphone, and speaker attached. Unbeknownst to them, he also has an earpiece that connects directly to Geraldine. Over the months of his recovery, he was constantly told that if he ever wants to see his parents again, when the time comes, he should listen to the instructions that are given to him. And so, as the kids go through a number of challenges, Geraldine gives infrequent instructions to Matthew in order to sow chaos, such as screaming randomly when somebody does something that requires concentration, which does result in somebody dying. So the kids do end up going through a number of challenges, such as Deadly Twister, diving in curdled milk, killer jump rope, razor blade kid toys, and playing basketball with a severed head. The kids' numbers are slowly reduced via gutting, quartering, melting, and smushing, only until Matthew and one of the girls are left. The two are forced into a final game, which is kind of very, very, very reminiscent of a Saw game, where their arms are forced into a container, and they play rock, paper, scissors. And whoever wins does nothing happen, but whoever loses has the opponent's move done to them. So if the opponent played scissors and won with that, you lose a finger to scissors. If they played rock, you get your hand crushed by a hydraulic press. That kind of thing. Matthew wins the best of 3 game, I believe, and is then told in order to win, he has to kill the girl. He is unable to bring himself to do it, and so the girl, after being informed by Geraldine that Matthew is the reason that some of the bad things that happened, does try to kill him with a knife or pair of scissors or something. He ends up strangling her to death with a yo-yo. And then after it is done, Rock makes the argument to Geraldine that the boy should be released like they promised him, citing that Rock has never asked her for anything and that the boy didn't see any of their faces. Geraldine, for some reason that is still kind of unclear to me, agrees with Rock, and then has the epiphany that having parents as part of the fun would make the run of the final playground more interesting, which is how we get the situation in the first book. I think it's mostly implied that Geraldine, and she might have actually said this, I don't fully remember, that him living is his punishment, and then Rock also states that him living is his punishment enough, because he'll, something about, every time he closes his eyes, he'll see her face turning blue, and every time he tries to breathe while falling asleep, he'll hear her last choked breath, that kind of shit. Matthew ends up at home again. He is horrifically deformed from the fire, but he is no longer a child of divorce, as his parents have come together during his time missing. And that is where our book ends. So, final thoughts. So this is something that I touched on in the first book. Rock's character development. In the first book, it felt very cyclical. It felt every chapter with Rock was just him flashing back to the fact that Geraldine abuses him realizing that he is partly responsible for these kids' torment, him going through yada, 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 yada. This sucks. This is terrible. I'm a terrible human. I don't want to be abused anymore. And then that happened like 10 times before he finally decided to stand up to Geraldine. In this book, so I have pretty much the same complaint as last time, but instead of Rock actually arcing, he just ends up like, because it's a prequel, and that's the issue with writing a prequel a lot of the time, is that you know that nothing really good can happen and that everyone has to die. So instead of being able to arc fully and stand up to Geraldine, we know that he can't do that. And in this one, his character arc completion, is kind of him requesting that Geraldine not kill Matthew. But I mean, we go through him thinking that it is his fault, and how he isn't like Fuchs and Geraldine every single time we are with his character. And that's not really an exaggeration. Every single time we are with his character, he notices that Geraldine and Fuchs are having fun with the kids dying and being mutilated and whatever. He thinks about how it's not for him, how he's not like them. He thinks about how Geraldine abuses him and how he shouldn't have let this happen, how he is almost as bad as them because he's letting the kids die. Rinse and repeat. I actually took some quotes this time in order to prove my point to you, so you don't have to just take my word for it. On page 126, we have Rock saying he wasn't like them. On page 154, he says his brain wasn't wired like theirs. He says it's in third person, but it's one of those third persons where we're in the person's mind. It's like stream of consciousness, but in third person. Also on page 154, even though he wasn't like them. On page 164, he couldn't comprehend it. Yeah, it's just the same shit, and then every time it's him blaming himself for the children dying. I didn't bother even taking notes about that. You're just gonna have to trust me on that one. But yeah, it's a bit much. It's a bit much. Again, not a bad book. This is final thoughts. Not a bad book. I did enjoy it. I think I like it better than Playground, so right now it is my favorite Aron Beauregard book. I'm going to go pick up a shit ton of books tomorrow, so we're gonna probably pick up some Aron Beauregard, and I'll be able to read some more of his lesser known works, things that didn't go fucking viral on TikTok, even though I don't use TikTok. Yeah. So yeah, overall, not bad, not terrible, not anything awful. I always recommend that you read the books for yourself and form your own opinions. Maybe you really fucking like Beauregard, maybe you really liked Playground, you will like this. Okay? I will put the link in the description, as I always do, to where you can buy it. I'll probably link his website directly. But yeah, as always, my opinions are my opinions and my opinions alone. Form your own opinions. Read the book. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, share, whatever the fuck else. Subscribe to my second channel. I'm going to be putting up a video over there, reading unhinged comments, very, very soon. And yeah, that's it. Bye.